I can't believe I have access to perfectly good self-help podcasts to listen to, and I'm still an asshole.
Are you talking about The Last Year of Dating Hypothesis by Kayla and Rachel?
Damn right I am.
Using scientific research
And our own personal stories,
we are going to form
a dating hypothesis.
In conclusion,
It's biology.
it's presumptive.
It's hypothetical.
It's interpretive. Hi, everybody. This is Kayla.
And this is Rachel with Dating Hypothesis. Thank you so much for joining us today.
This right here is a recap of the last year of episodes. We've posted episodes all of 2020, and we're going to recap and try and make sure you got something out of this last year.
And we're going to try to figure out what we were trying to say all year.
I know there was at least a few lessons on communication, and I think we talked DNA a little bit. And so, Rachel, what kind of lessons were you hoping that people got out of this?
When I started making this podcast, I wanted it to be a year-long lesson and each episode to be a different chapter. I wanted it all to flow together. I wanted each lesson to build upon the last one so that at the end of the year, when you looked back, you realized you had learned about science, the human body, relationships, chemicals, energy, interpersonal relationships with romantic partners, family, friends. I thought it was going to be science-based. And looking back, like as the year morphed and as we were writing episodes and pulling everything together and then recording and editing and releasing, I came to realize it wasn't as science-based as I thought. We do have science articles. I sit down and I pull maybe 20 to 30 scientific articles off the internet, and then I create each episode from those. So it is very science-based. But it turns out I really like to lecture.
A little bit.
Who knew? Like, I just spent a year wagging my finger in this angry, motherly manner at every single person that might come across this podcast. And that was not my original intention. My original intention was for it to be all about the science, and it was supposed to be funny. I'm listening to some of these past episodes and I'm like, Jesus, somebody's an angry little bitch.
It's the sociopath that's yelling at everybody on how to be a good partner. The girl that's done how many different lessons on why it's bad to be a cheater.
Currently cheating.
Why it's bad to lie.
Currently lying.
The crazy side of being a sugar baby.
Still sugaring.
What's going on in your life, Rachel, these days?
So I broke up with both of my sugar daddies. Today, of all days, they both have wrangled me back in. So Kayla's gonna go through my email that I've written to one of them and just insert some happy positive words, because right now it's a very angry email.
Communication does need to be somewhat nice, even when you're
Especially
angry.
if you're trying to get something from somebody.
Yeah, don't be an angry jerk when you want somebody to, pay you money to be your companion like that.
Don't be an angry sugar baby.
Unless that's what your sugar daddy's into, then I guess, right? That's a thing.
Maybe that's what I should find. I need to find somebody who really loves the anger.
We've talked about our brains can be more. So you can change your mind to be better about these things. We can rewire. We can change our neural pathways.
I ran away for 8 months, went overseas, went to Europe, and I really thought I was going to come back changed because I had broken up with everyone. My boyfriend, cheating ex-abuser. I'd broken up with my sugar daddies, or they had broken up with me. I was going to come back a clean slate. I was going to do well in school. I was going to be making this podcast. And my ex starts bombing me as soon as I come back. My sugar daddies come back. And it's like, so now I'm in the exact same position. Do I block him out? Do I shut him out? A week ago, I sent an email to my ex, who I've been sleeping with since I got back. And I sent him an email and told him I was moving, which I'm not, but he has anxiety and takes meds for that. So the chances of him showing up to prove if I moved, I think I finally got rid of him because I never gave him my new phone number when I came back. So he can't call me. He's just been showing up at my door. And if he thinks I moved, then he can't find me. He's blocked on Facebook. I think I might have finally ditched the toxic ex.
I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you. You got got rid of one toxic thing.
One.
Are you going to change your vibration?
As we are making up our mind to do these things and as we are enacting out the new behavior, those vibrations coming off are completely different. Your brain is changing, your thoughts are changing, your behavior is changing, your communication is changing, your vibes are changing, which is attracting different vibes.
Whether it's I'm not interested in the way you're treating me because I deserve to be treated well, I do not deserve to be abused, lied to, or cheated on. Do not let someone coerce you into a piss poor relationship.
Yeah, don't let people take advantage of you. My current sugar daddy, who Kayla's going to check my email, the only reason I got together with him in the first place is because he's 90 years old. This guy is basically on his deathbed, on his way out, and he's got money. He's lived through the Depression. If I was more cheapskate, I'd probably have money too.
Yeah.
Yeah. A week ago, we had this fight. He got mad at me because I cooked him Thanksgiving dinner all day and didn't toast him. So he's used to me pouring a champagne glass and toasting him on every holiday or celebration. And I didn't. And that was proof that I hated him. And he could feel me radiating this hatred. And so he broke up with me. And so I asked him why he didn't toast me. I was like, I cooked all day. Why didn't you pour the champagne and toast me? And he just looked at me like I was crazy. And that's when I realized he was never going to give me anything. So I accepted the breakup. Again, this is our third breakup. And a couple days later, of course, he's like, well, I didn't mean it. Let's talk. So I explained to him in his face exactly what sugaring was, and the look on his face of pure shock. He was like, you only chose to get with me because I'm dying? And I was like, well, yeah. Why else would I sleep with a man 40 years older than me that's wrinkly and smelly and has dentures? And he's like, I don't smell. I'm like, you're 90. You smell.
Everyone
So
over
we-
the age gap.
Yeah. So I'm like fisting it out with this, geriatric elderly man that needs a wheelchair to get around. Is so pathetic. I am so pathetic. What the fuck? My whole goal was to use this bastard for money, which failed miserably. And now his makeup email, he is making all of these demands on me. The things you're asking from me are what come on top of a good allowance, not a normal average allowance. My God, how do I get myself into these horrible situations?
Rachel, I love you so much.
So, Kayla, how was your last year?
My last year, good God. I've talked about it vaguely at one point or another. I got an ADHD diagnosis, which explains why my brain functions a little different. I always just thought I was weird, lazy, strange, and some of the things I thought were just normal. Have you ever done that thing where you kind of make your ears make like a thundering noise inside your head? Apparently it's not like a normal thing that everybody does. My brain functions differently, and if I want to fit the normal societal things, I have to figure out how to rewire my brain to match what society says is normal. I got off the medication I was
I
on.
haven't found the meds help at all. Like, doesn't quiet things, calm things, change perspectives.
They did when I was at my highest peak anxiety during the pandemic, when I was like stuck at home. My son just recently got his autism diagnosis. My world came crashing. My anxiety was through the roof. Now, understanding my anxiety exists because I have ADHD made a big difference. It made me understand that, okay, so there's a reason behind my anxiety besides all of this, which has allowed me to figure out ways to cope better. Some of my struggles in life have come from childhood because obviously I've had ADHD my whole life. It's part of the way your brain functions. I never felt normal. I did weird things. I had bad habits of like making noises. I couldn't sit still. My parents used to have this joke about how one time my dad had me sit in his lap. I was like 3-4 years old because I was just wiggling all over the place. So he had me sit in his lap trying to get me to sit still. And I'm like wiggling my hands and fingers around. So he grabs my hands and fingers and holds them. And I start wiggling my legs around. So then he tries to hold my legs still too. And then I'm like wiggling my toes around and bopping my head around. And being like that, I was a distraction. I was a problem. I would make funky noises for no reason. I do that and all that kind of goofy ticking sounds because my brain just was going a million miles an hour and that would just come out. And so I worked so hard to not do those things because that's not normal. That caused a lot of issues for me. I recently started listening to an audiobook. It's called Keeping House While Drowning, and it's by a therapist who has ADHD. She talks about how society punishes us for not having perfect houses. We look at it as a moral thing. You're not a morally good person because your house is clean. That's not how it works. And that was a revelation for me. I started to care more about my house being functional and less about how it's supposed to look for Instagram perfect pictures, because you know the Instagram perfect picture, right? The focus is there. There's no mess. The kids had the perfect little finger painting. Meanwhile, we all know the truth. Kids are horrible little tornadoes and make messes everywhere.
I remember that.
And I've always been a disorganized person. I just am. That's not something that's high dopamine creation for me. I always felt lazy. I hated myself because, well, I should have gotten those dishes done right away. But that doesn't give us dopamine. We need dopamine. I've always had such an intense need for caffeine and chocolate. They create dopamine and serotonin. Bitch, you're not an addict. Your brain's just like, dopamine. Where's the dopamine? I need the dopamine.
How do you foresee next year being different for you personally, romantically, with your husband, with your kids, your job?
I need to make life more functional for me. I don't have to match all society standards. So instead of posting those sweet things for my husband on Facebook, which FYI, he doesn't go on his Facebook. If you see his Facebook logged in, it's me on his Facebook. I focus on doing little acts of service that make us both happy. He likes it when I sing romantic songs. I'm not going to be intense on my kids with making sure their rooms are clean. They don't have to be clean. Granted, I don't want there to be like food molding in the corner.
Life goals, no moldy food in the corner.
You get what I mean? Like,
I do.
As long as it's safely dirty, the fish haven't sprouted legs and crawled out of their tank, we're good, okay? We can have a mess. I'm not going to be so hard on myself. I'm going to have to do my taxes whether I want to or not. They don't bring me joy, but I'm not going to be angry at myself for having a hard time focusing on doing them. I'm going to allow myself those breaks. I'm not going to tell myself I have to earn the time and the breaks from things. Dancing around my kitchen while I do my dishes, because who wants to do dishes? Why? But you know what? It's fun when there's fun music, and I'm dancing to, 1990s country and pop songs, and my kids are looking at me like I'm on drugs. That's okay. I'm going to be happy with whatever makes my family happy.
In the last year, is there anything that's popped up or stood out to you that you plan on implementing in the new year between you and your husband?
Does anybody else remember that I'm Happy song by Pharrell that was so popular for so long? It made you happy. I intend to use music more that way.
So my next year looks kind of the same as the last couple months. I'm done traveling, so I'm not in Europe anymore. I'm not going anywhere. And I need to get my degree. I need to finish this process. I have a year left, so next year is going to be me buckled down, doing school through the summer, and then the 2 semesters. I'm volunteering in a lab. We are just about to do the injections in this lab over the break. I've been doing some extra trainings to make sure that I'm capable of what we're about to do. I'm so excited about seeing results. I'm excited about applications for grad school. I need to start downloading that. Next year I think is going to be incredibly busy for me. I've been a little sad and depressed that I don't have a boyfriend, somebody I feel love with or feel like I'm getting the proper attention that I need from another person. But I'm so busy. I have no time for other people. The 3 people that have been taking my 5 minutes here and there, this email is going to help. So even though it's not necessarily a good relationship, I'm hoping to make it better for myself. So there should be improvements for sure. Next year should be easier, relationship-wise, harder, workload-wise, and more fulfilling, because as I end this journey of my bachelor's, I'm going to start the journey of my grad school. I'm super excited about it.
I'm actually really excited to see what this does for you, because some of the things you share with me that you get involved in, I'm really stoked to hear about. Did I tell you what my goal by the end of this year hopefully is? I'm hoping for a new tattoo. I love tattoos. I've been staring at a million different artist profiles. I actually had one, again, through my work, good positive things. Super nice guy gave me his business card. He was a tattoo artist. So I've been staring at his profile mindlessly, I want that tattoo and that tattoo and that tattoo and wee. I love changing my image. I cut my bangs a while back, although they're starting to drive me nuts. I might change them again. I haven't dyed my hair in a while, so you can see the white hairs that are growing in there. Thank you, children. I believe the raven, the bird, the raven, is a good luck sign for me. And at first that was just a coincidence, but then I had one that I swear to God was trying to get my attention. In the parking lot at my son's school, this bird starts hopping on the roof of my car, staring at me. The weirdest thing I've ever seen. But I had such a good day that day. I want to get 2 little footprints on my shoulder from a raven. For me, that body modification is going to be a positive experience that is connected to a spiritual thing I believe in.
I have no body modifications that I'm looking forward to other than my hair growing out. On semester at sea, the students can volunteer to get their heads shaved. And I shaved my head. My whole life I had this long, beautiful blonde hair. It makes me look young. And I shaved my head and I look 20 years older without my hair. And so I cannot wait for it to finally get down to my shoulders. And it's amazing how stark my face looks without those soft flowing waves around my face.
What did your sugar daddies think of that? I never did ask you.
Nobody cared. My boyfriend didn't care about me. He's not good to me. They just looked at me like, oh, you cut your hair. Like nobody said anything. Nobody gave a shit.
That's so wild. See,
because
I was
they
like,
don't give a shit about me.
I was thrown. I was like, oh my God, she looks so, I was not expecting it. It threw me off when you sent me pictures. That's the difference between a healthy and an unhealthy relationship. Because let me tell you, when I walked out of the bathroom after chopping my hair, my husband was like, oh, you look different. Do you like it? Does it make you happy? It looks good on you. He wanted me to be happy with it. They shouldn't be controlling over the way you look. That's not normal. That's not healthy.
Yeah, and it's not healthy or normal to just completely disregard the look either. As far as the podcast goes, how is that going to look next year? We're going to try to be more consistent, although that is tough. This being my last year as a bachelor's, I've got some really hard classes coming up. We might not be more consistent, but we shouldn't be less consistent.
Yeah, the semester at sea made things a lot tougher. Trying to work our schedules. Poor Rachel would be getting up at 3 a.m. and I'd be staying up till 10, 11:30 at night to start things. So I'd be finishing by 1 a.m. and she'd be finishing by 6 a.m. and it was, oh good God.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. So as far as episodes go, we're going to open with perspective. I have been dreaming and thinking and piecing together this episode for 6 months. And then, of course, like this entire podcast itself, not the podcast particularly because I didn't know this was what the end result was going to be, but all of these articles, all of these thoughts, all of these scripts have been floating around my brain for 12 years. And then as I'm putting them down for Kayla and I to read, to do an episode, like I get super excited. So I've been excited about this particular episode for 6 months. After that, we've got kinks, and then what is love? Kayla really wants to do one on postpartum depression, which I'm excited about because I also had postpartum depression after my son was born. We're going to do an episode on, is sex even important?
I'm going to throw in there, I think it is because it builds dopamine for me. Woohoo!
Before my travels over to Europe, I knew that there were cultures that had altars for penises and that penises were very prominent as statues or in gods in cultures, and being able to see that in person and experience that firsthand as I was traveling made me excited about the episode Worship My Penis. I understand the dynamics around that and we'll go into detail of that, but I'm excited about that one. And then nature. Are we part of nature or are we apart from nature? Communal sex. So having spent 11 years on the road as a Renaissance traveler, I have some interesting takes on communal sex, and being able to piece that together with different cultures and societies is exciting for me. So I am looking forward to writing next year's episodes. They're already planned out. We have them all labeled, have articles pull aside for them, and it's just a matter of getting that down on paper, going through it with Kayla so that we can record properly.
Yes. It's always interesting hearing Rachel's take on things. Like, we've kind of established Rachel's been through and done a lot more than me. She's had a far more wild and interesting life. I got married at 23, had a kid at 25, met my husband at 18. My life's been a little more on the tame side. I bring the tamer, more normal mindset to things. And I try my best to defend the men out there because Rachel's a she-woman man-hater. Given the experiences she's had, it's fair.
One of my man friends listened to the episodes, came back, the only feedback he would give was, well, it's written by women for women. And I was like, really? That's all? It's all you're going to give me here? And he's just like, mm-hmm.
So men, feel free to let us know if we're not talking enough in a positive manner for you. I'll do my best to protect you.
Kayla will step up for you.
Because men can be great. I have great men in my life. My dad's a great guy. He has his issues, as we all do, but he's a great guy. My husband is a great guy. They have been more than wonderful in taking care of the women in their life. They are not abusive.
What has it been like for us creating, manifesting, and then publishing this podcast, all these episodes? For me, I anticipated fear at some point. It's really difficult for me to experience fear. That's not something that is common. A lot of the things that I tell you guys, a lot of the things that I share here on the podcast, I never would have done 10 years ago. I never would have done 20 years ago. Why am I doing it now? Well, because I'm 50. I'm a dried up old bag hag woman with no prospect of ever getting married again or having a relationship again. My life is done, gone, used up, and there's not really any point to protect myself anymore. I don't need to hide these things anymore. I don't need to be afraid of what I'm saying. I did anticipate fear. I know that the things that I say are socially unacceptable. People don't want to hear them. They disagree with them, and they're usually shocked, and they think I'm joking. And then when they realize I'm not joking, it can be off-putting. It can be offensive. We don't have any listeners, so apparently this podcast is not going to take off like fire.
Hey, it might. We had that one episode that got like 40 downloads, okay?
So I know that what I'm saying is not mainstream, it's not popular, it's not even socially acceptable. But being able to talk about it, being able to say it, being able to get excited about pulling together this science, piece together my entire past and my history and what I believe and what I think and how I feel, and being able to speak about it every single week with Kayla has been so therapeutic. I thought I was going to be afraid. I thought I would be afraid to tell my brother that there's a podcast out there. I did finally tell him. He was excited. He binged, listened to all of them. He loved it. He was like, I don't see anything wrong with it. I told a couple friends, same thing. They were like, I love it. I don't see anything wrong with it. And so I'm realizing that all these things that I have hidden, I was a Sunday school teacher for 7 years. If you have this kind of background and these kind of thoughts, you hide them. You don't talk about these things when you're around a bunch of little kids. I was a Boy Scout leader and a Girl Scout leader for 8 years. You don't talk or share this kind of thoughts or feelings when you're working around kids. I didn't want other people to be afraid of me. Now, for the first time in my life, I'm having this open conversation about the 100% real me with the whole world who's not listening. I don't care. I love being able to talk about it. I love being able to say it. I love that it's out there. I love that if I ever wanted to, I could say, oh yeah, I have a podcast. I have been extremely grateful for the podcast, being able to get all of these things off my shoulders, off my chest in this format. It's acceptable, right? Because it's a podcast. We're supposed to be entertaining. We're supposed to be dramatic. These things that have been over the top for a normal conversation are okay in this setting. And so for the first time in my life, I almost feel acceptable. I almost feel normal being able to talk about these things. And it's been very therapeutic for me.
Yeah, coming into this podcast, I truthfully didn't really know what to expect. I had hopes and dreams that we were going to explode and get rich and I could not work a full-time job anymore, which, let's face, is probably not realistic to start a podcast and expect that. But hey, big dreams, big dreams. I've learned so much about lots of different topics. Rachel has taught me things that I never would have known anything about. I've enjoyed learning about different cultural, romantic things. I didn't know half the stuff about personality disorders that I know now. It's fascinating to hear such a different life from what I live. With my ADHD, I've always felt like I was a weirdo. I had something wrong with me. Come to find out, I'm not that screwed up. No. I love you, Rachel.
You're kind of normal.
Honestly speaking, it feels good to share these details with the world, even if they're not my details, because I do feel like we are getting important messages out. If only one person ever listens, but they learn how to be treated by a partner, they learn how to have a healthier relationship, that's good. That's what I want in the world. I want to make a difference for at least one person. And this is fun. If it's nothing else, it's a fun relationship that Rachel and I have gotten. Don't get me wrong. We've had moments, we've had fights, but it all comes back down to we have an ultimate goal with this. And yeah, we might get frustrated with each other. I might get irritated because she's busy for 3 weeks with her stuff. And she might get frustrated because my dumbass forgot to upload the videos because, oh, look, shiny object. We have those moments back and forth because we are two very different people. Rachel is particular. She likes things done in a certain order. I'm a space case. It works because in the end, we both do care about each other. I consider Rachel one of my top friends. We get very vulnerable, even off camera. We talk about vulnerable things. Some of it's stuff that I'm too scared to share because I'm not going to lie, I am scared of people not liking me still. I'm only 30. I have little kids and I want their friends' parents to still like me. It is fun, and I do feel like I've become a little more open with who I am as a person. I do walk around and tell everybody about the podcast. I post it on random forums online, in the little video game channels of the dumb phone games I play. I'm like, hey, listen to my dating podcast, because I don't care if they like me. There are people playing all over the planet. I don't even know them, whatever.
I look forward every single week to talking with you, Kayla. I've noticed when we don't talk for 3 weeks, I start spiraling. I start getting depressed. Like, I miss you. I could even say at this point, and I feel like I felt this 6 months ago, I love you, Kayla. I know so much about you, and I have shared so much with you, and you have been so patient and accommodating and working towards this goal and this dream with me and fulfilling this. You have made something possible that I could not get to happen with anyone else. And I have so much appreciation. And when I don't see your face on my Zoom for like 2 weeks, I get so sad.
I do too. We had a big break during Thanksgiving, basically, because she had finals and midterms and all kinds of other stuff. And I thought she was going away with her sugar daddy, but then that changed and I didn't realize it. So I was trying not to bother her because I don't want to be a burden. And so we just zoomed just to Zoom and be like, hey, when you're stateside, we can sit and chat and we tell each other all kinds of wild stories. Oh my God, your sugar daddy said what? Your ex did what? To me telling her ridiculous things that my children do.
Kayla, what didn't happen or what disappointed you or what did you not like about the episodes or about creating this podcast with me?
Some of the episodes were a little intense. There was a couple episodes where we'd beat up on guys and I should have stepped up and said something, but I got uncomfortable. I'm a little disappointed in myself for being uncomfortable, for not wanting to offend you, so I didn't speak up. So that bothered me. I wish I would have, and that's something I intend to do better in the future is stepping up against what you say, because it's okay to have differing opinions on some of these things. In some of these episodes, we talked about topics I kind of wish we would have touched a little heavier on. I'd love to talk more again on personality disorders at some point in the future, because I think they are such a deep dive topic. And even with 2 episodes, I think we can really detail them more in relation to other things in the future. Those are some of the big ones for me. I would also love to see the occasional mini episode thrown in where we just chat about stuff we've talked about.
One of the things that disappointed me about the last year, I can't put everything that I want to in these episodes. So I end up cutting out half of what I want to include, or separating one episode into 2 episodes, which makes it disjointed. I get frustrated trying to put everything that's in my head, every point that I want to make down and crunch it into the span of an hour. And the biggest complaint that I get from listeners is it goes too fast. You just throw 1,000 ideas at the refrigerator and hope something sticks. Why can't you slow down? Why don't you pause? And my reaction is, I can't slow down. I'm already missing half of what I'm trying to tell you. And so one of the things that I wished is that it was normal for a podcast listener to hit pause. For me, when I am trying to learn physics and calculus and organic chemistry, I go onto the internet and I look up Khan Academy, I look up the organic chemistry tutor, and I am continuously pressing pause. So in a 5-minute video where I'm learning a concept, I push pause 18 times, go back, listen again, hit pause, go back, hit. And I wish that it was more normalized for a podcast listener to do that. We'll just hit pause. Like, how hard is that to just hit the pause button? But they don't want to. They want the podcast to flow in a way where they're only taking in 1 or 3 concepts in the course of an hour, and it sits well with them. They don't like this constant barrage of information, but that's how I work. I want to know more. I want to know every single detailed perspective and how it affects everyone surrounding the area. Another thing that frustrates me is the citations. A few listeners commented, that's not true. I don't understand why you're exaggerating. I don't understand why you can't leave links. But the thing is on our website, if you click an episode, right next to that episode is a link to all of the citations. And I'm going to do one simple example. My brother was listening to a podcast episode. He immediately texted me and said, "Why are you making up the fact that they put sugar in the milk?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I have a link to the FDA that talks about how the dairy industry won the right to put sugar in our milk without our knowledge, without putting it on a label. And he's not the only one that was concerned about this. So someone else also, I had to send this link to several people. Someone else, they get the link, they read it, and they're like, "Well, that's not sugar." And I'm like, "It is. It says right there, they put allulose in the milk." And he's like, "Well, what's that?" And I'm like, "It's sugar."
Sugar is not just that stuff you guys see in the bag at the grocery store. There's lots of levels to sugar. As a diabetic's
like,
daughter and my best friend being diabetic, there's lots of things that are sugar.
I'm like, my God, how many fucking sweeteners are out there? It's like they're sweetening the goddamn milk. They may not use the word sugar in the court case, and they don't want you to know what they're doing. So they're going to use these fancy chemical names on the websites that they have to publish to the world, or these articles, but it's sugar. Even when I put this information out there, even when I show people, I send them the links, they're still like, "No, that's not what that is." And I'm like, "Yes, it is."
That's the thing, guys. We may be outrageous on some stuff, but it is facts. Rachel spends excessive amounts of times reading articles. I can't tell you guys. At one point, I was doing all the citations and I started getting a headache going through and reading and making sure all this stuff was accurate, because she'd find the article and she'd like screenshot it and I'd be like, "No, I got to look this up." So then I'd look it up and I'd have to read through it, make sure it was legitimate. I'm like, "Oh my God, there's too much info in my brain." Meh.
And that's another thing that's frustrating is I use scientific data. And some of this data is really old. So something as simple as talking about Pavlov's bell. How old is that data? How old is that experiment? My God, we're talking like ancient. The world as a whole tends to agree and believe that this is a factual event. So I'm not just pulling on data that's recent in the last 2, 5, 10 years. I'm pulling on data that's ever been collected. And a lot of the data that's been collected has been disproven or has been shown to be kind of shoddy science. And yet at some point it was accepted. And I talk about all of those things. The simple concept of telegony, the fact that if I have sex with one guy and then dump him and never see him again, and then get pregnant with the next guy, the traits of both of those men will be in my child. Now, that is highly disputed, but you will find camps in both arena that strongly believe, this side say it's false. The other side says this is true. We have proof. And so for me, I'm not trying to say if this data is fake or false or true. I just know that data has been collected. And I love connecting the dots in my own mind on all of these different theories, which some people say are conspiracy theories or outrageous or not true. It's based on data. For me, data is fun.
Did I ever tell you at one point I had to contact your son to help me find an article that you had screenshotted? It got put so far into the internet archives, I had to use a literal webpage called The Wayback Machine to find it.
Oh my God.
It was like, what? Where did she find this? And he's like, I have no idea. We spent no joke, 15, 20 minutes messaging back and forth trying to find that stupid article. Some of the science that we understand and know today came from long ago. Gravity, for instance, right? Gravity is not a new concept, but we all accept it and believe it.
Not true. There is a whole field of science out there that says gravity and the entire concept behind it is not true. And then they explain what it really is. And there are some fascinating videos that I'm going to send you tonight, girl. You are going to learn about the truth behind gravity.
You see what I'm saying, people? She just sits and searches for information. Don't get me wrong. I have my hyperfixations that I do that with too, but Rachel just does it with all things science. I try and be like, I heard about this thing. And she's like, yeah, I heard about that like 6 months ago and I read these 13 articles on it. And here's a link. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ.
And here's the people that believe it's true. Here's the people that don't believe it's true. And this is how I think it affects the whole world based on both sides.
And I'm just like, oh, well, I just saw a Facebook video on it. Like, okay.
Since we're having this conversation, I am going ahead and reveal my biggest rant about science. So my son was concerned about how I was making a podcast that was based on science, and yet every single episode I would mock scientists and researchers. Rupert Sheldrake, I am in love with his books. He goes into, which a lot of people get angry about, but I love his ideas and I'm 100% a fan of his. The gravity thing, the light thing, the speed of light. So the speed of light, we all know what that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do we? Because it's not a set thing like they say. The speed of light changes, gravity changes, a lot of science changes. We as a society like things to be set in stone, and so we just say the speed of light is such and such. We just say gravity is such and such, when in reality, these things are a spectrum, or they're changing, or they're fluctuating, which I'm going to send you that video and you're going to read it. And so for me, the frustrating part is I want to make this podcast idea based on science, despite knowing researchers are faulty, scientists are faulty. Look at the tobacco industry, look at the wine industry, look at the sugar industry. We know for a fact that we've been bamboozled by scientists, by doctors, by researchers for years, 20, 30, 50, 100 years on purpose. I want to make this podcast about science. I want it to be believable. I want it to be factual. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of fucked up bullshit science out there. There's a lot of researchers out there that are being bribed and doing faulty research on purpose. There's a lot of corporations that are purchasing bad science to fit their needs. And I am not afraid to talk about this. I am not afraid to bash a scientist or a researcher, and I am going to be one soon. So as soon as I get my PhD, I'm going to have a lab of my own, hopefully. Who knows what will really happen, but ultimately, my goal is to have my own lab, my own research, and I am not going to be afraid to tell people that I am faulty, that my data might not be correct, that maybe they should double check it and see it from a different perspective. Because even if it's true from my perspective, doesn't mean it's not true from your perspective. We can see things from a variety of approaches, and things can be right or wrong depending on how we're approaching it.
I totally agree. First of all, I'm in the same camp, right? I've always thought science was one of those things where, and my husband's favorite saying is the same thing too. Science is true until it's proven otherwise. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's theoretically 2 + 2 would equal 4 if this situation were to occur. But this variable can change that if this were to occur. That's okay. It's okay to learn and grow. That's what science is, right? Science is not meant to be 100% only one thing. And I think people forget that, right? Because, there's scientific data. Yes, there is. Data can be faulty, though. Look at different neurotypes. Autism used to basically be one little pocket, and then there was Asperger's, which is another little pocket, and there was this, and there was another little pocket. And now they're realizing, and it's right in the name now, autism spectrum disorder. There's a spectrum to the different neurotypes. It used to be ADD and ADHD. They used to be separate things. Now they're looped into one thing. There's all these different things that, because science says it's this is this. And then they come to understand, well, actually, these two things are related. They're just different variations.
Call you crazy, look at you like you're insane, like, well, you're making that up. She must be confusing it with something else or exaggerating something that she read.
Right. And I've said that about the pharmaceutical industry. Smallpox.
Don't talk about vaccines.
Vaccine that was supposed to be completely safe.
Don't talk about vaccines, Kayla.
But they
oh my God, I want this to thrive. It's a bad word. It's like, that's worse than the word fuck. Like, you can say fuck 1,000 times. Don't use the word vaccine on this podcast.
But you get what I'm saying. Things change. We learn new things.
It's almost to the point where science has become the new religion. And I am just not okay with that. I 100% can get behind any religion out there and believe it fully, knowing it's full of shit. I don't want science to be the new religion that's full of shit. For people to just hand over their heart, blessing it, believing in the science. And it's like, that's not what science is. Knock it off. You're perverting something sacred.
Yes. Never at any point in time should science be this thing you hold on a pedestal, because it is fallible. Yeah. It's done by human beings. Guess what? Human beings are fallible.
Valuable. So
that being said, is science bad? No. Can science be done poorly? Yes.
Yes. Can data be misinterpreted? Yes. Can people fuck up while they're squeezing out the pipette? Yes. I mean, I sit and get trained in labs and I watch the person teaching me do it wrong. They're like, here's how you do it. And I'm going to show you 3 more times. And then the 3rd time they do it wrong and they don't notice. And I'm like, you did that wrong. And they're like, what?
And it could even just be that the person interpreting the data has the wrong mindset going into interpreting the data. Yeah. That's why you can't trust one small study. Things have to be done multiple times. You have to see if you can replicate the same thing multiple times.
And then when people tell me that I'm crazy for linking these 10 ideas together that have nothing to do with each other, and I'm like, it's science. I can link it any way I want. And if I choose to get my PhD and study it, I can prove or disprove it based on my perception. Or you can go get your PhD and you can prove or disprove it based on your perception. And you know what? We both might end up being right or wrong together.
Exactly.
Wrap it up now, baby. Happy New Year, Kayla.
Yes. Happy New Year, Rachel, and all our listeners. We look forward to continuing to send these crazy messages your way.
Stay tuned for the next crazy, wacky idea from Kayla and Rachel.
And with that, thank you for listening.
We love you.
We'll see you on next week's episode.